So the building my exhaust thing you probably thought was finally over, as I've got an exhaust. I know how to get it through the noise test and all that sort of thing. But it's been rumbling in the back of my head how heavy that silencer is. Now, I know the easiest way of getting some weight off my car for track days is going on a bit of a diet, isn't it? But in fact, that would be negative cost. But well, I like cider and munchies too much. So the next best thing I thought is see if I can find a lighter exhaust. And being a sort of a biker from the 90s and noughties, I thought, well, carbon, that's the way to go, isn't it? Carbon end can. Some of those things used to be light as a feather. So I had a look on good old eBay and Google searching. It didn't really seem to be much of a thing for car stuff. You can get them for bikes, but obviously those are quite small and aren't going to reduce the noise very much. And I can't then connect extra pipes on the end or extra silencing on the end if I need to. So in my normal way of things, I thought, right, well, if I can't buy it, let's make it myself. So this is how I'm making my own carbon end can. So I've ordered a length, I think it's a metre of this stuff off good old eBay. So that's the perforated tube, that's 3 inches, that's the perforated tube that goes down the middle. This is the current end can, which is 6 inches. I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to do it, I can fit a fatter end can in there. And I'm told the fatter they are, the more noise they take off. So I thought, right, I need something, because I couldn't find any carbon tube on eBay, well, or even on Ali. I can find it for like thin stuff. Yes, I think modelers must use it, because you can get carbon tube in some really quite small sizes, but not anything that was big enough for what I needed. So I was racking my brains, what can I use as a former to basically wrap carbon around to make a tube? I was thinking of drain pipes, but they're too small. Anyway, I happened to be chatting to my mate Brian over at the Oak Swamp channel when I was round having a coffee round his and kicking the tyres on his latest rat rod, and he mentioned a fire extinguisher. And it is, just so happen to have an old fire extinguisher kicking around in the garage, and it is just about the right size. So I need to carefully chop these off, and I could basically use that as a former. So my carbon end can will be that size. The first thing I need to do is just chop these off. This, by the way, is an old out-of-date fire extinguisher that was in a scrap heap that I liberated because I thought, well, it may be out of date, but it might be useful one day. So I've got to chop these off carefully and see where we are from there. Right, let's get cutting. Succinct. Cutting done. Time to change the disc, do some grinding. So I've taped over where I cut those brackets off, and also the seam down the side, and then I've done quite a few layers of cling film, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, is going to help make it easier to remove this thing when it's done. So next stage is going to be cutting the fiberglass, and also, sorry, not the fiberglass, the carbon. I may use a bit of fiberglass because I'm thinking I'll probably put a couple of strips around, certainly at the ends where the end bits will attach, and maybe a couple of bands just to kind of give it a bit of extra rigidity. I think I've only got enough carbon here for about 2, maybe 3 layers, which I think might be a bit thin just on its own. Anyway, I'm thirsty, so I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee before I do anything else. Got a load of carbon cut. I think that's enough for about 2.5 layers. And then I've got a load of this fairly thin fiberglass cut. So I'm going to use this for kind of doing bands around the ends and probably the middle to give it a bit of extra rigidity. I'm hoping that 2-3 layers is going to be enough. I'm not completely sure, but I'll give it a go and see what happens. So now it's time to mix up some resin, and you're going to see a very unusual thing, and that's me actually reading instructions. Okay, so I've got a whole load of cautions. There's normally like a mix ratio, so saying to me it's got to be over 15 degrees, so I'm going to get the fan heater on. At lower temperatures, product thickens and therefore is, so to re-warm resin. Okay, harder. So normally there's a ratio. Oh, here we are. Catalyst, mix 2 parts resin to 1 part hardener. So I assume that as that pot there is smaller than this one, it's 2 of these to 1 of those. So let's get a mixing. There might be a really irritating background noise. That's because I've just put a little fan heater on, just to make sure, because we're only about 15 degrees today. So just to make sure that we're okay temperature wise. Now I'm going to do a total guess here and mix about 300 ml. I reckon that can always mix a bit more if needed. So it's 200 of that one, 100 of this one. Give it a really good mix together. Whenever you mix anything like this, you've just got to be sure to scrape the sides and your mixer stick, because otherwise you can end up with unmixed stuff on the sides. The same with the bottom, so I'm trying to go across. It's pretty well mixed up. And I have my former. And what I've got is an old, very stubby paintbrush. So I'm not too sure at what point I knocked my phone camera on the floor during that video, and so there may be virtually no video of me laying up this, or there might be quite a lot. Anyway, so I did 1 to 2 layers of the fiberglass. There's 1 layer all over, and then there's kind of a nice thick band there, middle and bottom is a second layer, and the carbon then went round about 2.5 turns. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that'll be enough. I'll find out when it's all hardened. You might have been wondering when I showed you all the bits and bobs I'd got at the beginning why I had acetate, and that's to wrap it around at the end. Helps squeeze the resin nicely into the carbon, but most importantly, because it's sort of shiny, it gives a nice shiny finish when you take it off. So that's all I can do on that at the moment. That's got to sit there and harden. I think it'll be a few days before I can do anything more, because I've landed myself a bit of a side job that I'm doing for the first time this weekend. I'm actually instructing in supercars at Castle Combe, so that's Friday, Saturday and Sunday. My office is going to be, I'm not too sure which, either a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or an Aston. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how it's going to go, but there we go. It'll be fun. All part of life's interesting tapestry. Hopefully I get to do a few laps in the car as well, but we'll see about that. So it's next day. I don't have any time to actually do any work on this exhaust, but I kind of had to pop down just to make sure that the resin's set and have a quick squeeze at it. So the dregs of the resin are in here, and that is definitely set, so that's definitely good news. And that's my fire extinguisher, so let's see if we take this acid just nice and easy. It's not too bad a finish, is it? And a couple of patches where there was obviously a bit more resin there. I don't have time to take it off of the I don't have time to take it off now. Focus on this tonight, focusing on it. Yeah, so fingers crossed. Hi, thanks for getting to the end of the video. If you're not already subscribed, please do so now. Just hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell button, and that way YouTube will tell you when there's any new videos. We've got some big plans ahead for the channel, including possibly a car build from scratch. So if you want to get involved with that, now's the time to subscribe. Cheers, bye.